You clicked because somebody sold you a lie. They told you that if you want to curve a golf ball on command, a gentle draw one hole, a soft fade the next, you have to tear your whole swing down and build a new one. Rebuild the grip, rebuild the takeaway. Months of lessons. I believed that too, until I watched a man in his 70s do it in the rain, with a swing that looked half asleep. Here is what I found. You can hit both shots this week with the exact swing you own right now by changing three things before the club ever moves. Not the swing, the setup. And the strange part is, this method was written down in plain language decades before any machine existed to prove it worked. I traced it back to a book from 1942 and a set of numbers from a radar company that nearly nobody outside professional coaching has heard spoken out loud. Stay with me, because those numbers are the key that unlocks everything, and this works for the weekend player with the same old clubs in the garage, not just for somebody starting fresh. Let me take you back to that driving range, because that is where the whole thing started to unravel for me. It was a gray Tuesday, drizzle coming sideways, and the range was nearly empty. One man down at the far end. Older gentleman, maybe 72, 73, wearing a cardigan that had seen better decades. And he was doing something I had spent 2 years and a small fortune in lessons failing to do. He would set up, make this smooth, unhurried pass at the ball, and it would start a little right and curl gently back to the left. A draw. Then he would do it again, same lazy tempo, and the ball would start left and drift softly back right. A fade. Back and forth. Draw, fade, like he was flipping a switch. I walked down and asked him straight out, "What are you doing differently between those two shots?" And he looked at me like I had asked why water is wet. He said, "Son, I am not doing anything differently. I am aiming differently. The swing is the same swing I have had since Eisenhower." That sentence stuck in me like a splinter. The swing is the same. I had been told my whole golfing life that the swing was the problem, that the swing was the answer, that everything lived and died in the swing. And here was a man telling me the swing barely mattered, that the ball was already told where to go before he ever pulled the club back. So here is the first clue, and I want you to hold on to it, because everything hangs off this. The curve on a golf ball is decided almost entirely by things you set before you move. By the time the club is halfway back, the ball's fate is basically sealed. The old man was not manipulating anything mid-swing. He was making the same motion into a different alignment and letting simple geometry do the bending. That day I drove home and I could not let it go. Because if that were true, if you really could shape the ball with pure setup, then why did every lesson I ever paid for start with the words, "We need to change your swing"? Somebody, somewhere, had a reason for making this hard. And that question is what sent me digging into the old books. But before I show you what I found in those books, I need to give you the three things that old man was actually changing, because they are almost insultingly simple, and I tested every one of them myself before I believed a word. The first thing is the club face, where the leading edge is pointing at the moment it meets the ball. The second thing is your stance line, the direction your feet, hips, and shoulders are aimed. And the third thing is the path your club travels, which, and this is the part that shocked me, mostly just follows wherever you aimed your body. You do not have to force the path. You set your body, and the path comes along for the ride. Now watch how those three fit together, because this is the whole game. For a draw, the kind that starts right and curls back left for a right-handed player, you aim your body a touch to the right of your target, and you keep the club face pointed pretty much at the target itself. That is it. Your body is aimed right, so your swing travels a little out to the right, but the face is looking left of that path, back at the target. And that small difference, face pointing left of where the club is swinging, puts a gentle right to left spin on the ball. It starts out to the right, then curls home. For a fade, you flip it. Aim your body a touch left of the target, Keep the face pointing near the target. Now the club swings a little to the left, the face is open to that path, pointing right of it, and the ball starts left and drifts back right. Same swing. Different aim. Draw, fade. Exactly like the man in the cardigan. I stood on that range the next week and tried it, expecting nothing, and my very first attempt at a draw, aiming my feet right and my face at the flag, the ball did exactly what it was supposed to. Started right and came home. I nearly dropped the club. 2 years of lessons, and the thing that finally worked took me about 90 seconds to set up. So one clue snapped into place. It really is the setup. But that only made the bigger question louder. If it is this simple, if the answer fits on the back of a napkin, then why has almost nobody told the ordinary weekend golfer this in plain words? Why is the whole world of golf instruction built around the opposite idea, the idea that you must break yourself down and rebuild? Someone benefited from keeping this complicated, and that is what I went looking for next. So I started buying old golf books. Not the shiny new ones. The old ones, the ones from before the television era, before the swing became a science project. And that is where I found the first man who had said all of this out loud, in print, long before I was born. His name was Percy Boomer. He was an Englishman, a teaching professional at a club in France, and in 1942 he published a book called On Learning Golf, Wartime. Paper was scarce, and in that book Boomer wrote something that stopped me cold. He taught that the golfer should feel the swing as one repeating motion, the same motion every time, and that shot shaping came from how you arranged yourself around that motion, not from tinkering with the motion itself. He compared the good swing to a body turning inside a barrel, fixed and repeatable, and he was almost angry about teachers who tried to get players to consciously steer the club through impact. He thought that was the road to ruin. Read that again through what I just showed you. The same repeating motion. Shape the ball by how you arrange yourself around it. Boomer was describing the man in the cardigan 40 years before I met him. And Boomer was not alone. Go back even further, to 1905, to a book called The Complete Golfer by Harry Vardon. Vardon won the Open Championship 6 times, more than any man before or since. And Vardon wrote about controlling the flight of the ball through the grip and the stance, the address position, the way you stood to the ball. Not through some violent mid-swing correction, through preparation. Then there is Ben Hogan, whose book from 1957, 5 Lessons, is probably the most famous golf instruction book ever printed. Hogan is remembered for battling a wild hook early in his career and turning it into a controlled fade that won him major championships. And how did he do it? Not by learning a whole new swing. He adjusted his grip and his setup and let the same swing produce a different shape. He set the ball up to fade and then swung freely, trusting the geometry. So the knowledge was there. It was published, Vardon in 1905, Boomer in 1942, Hogan in 1957, 3 of the greatest players and teachers who ever lived, all saying versions of the same thing. Set up correctly and swing freely. The shape is in the setup. That was the thread I pulled next, and it is where the story turns from curious to a little bit infuriating. Here is what happens when you make shot shaping simple. Nobody needs to keep coming back. Think about it. If I can teach you in one afternoon that a draw is just aim your body right and your face at the target, you learn it, you go home, you practice, you are done. You do not need a package of 10 lessons. You do not need the monthly membership to the Swing Academy. You do not need the video analysis subscription that charges your card every 30 days. But if I convince you that curving the ball requires a whole new swing, a rebuilt takeaway, a reworked wrist position, a different weight shift, well, now you are a customer for life. Now you need me. Now every mishit is proof that you have not finished rebuilding yet, so book another session. The complicated version is not complicated because it is true. In a lot of cases, it is complicated because complicated pays better. And it is not just lessons. Walk into any golf store and count how many products promise to fix your slice or add a draw. Special drivers with weights you slide around. Shafts. Training aids with straps and rods and beeping sensors. Some of that has real value, I am not going to pretend otherwise. But a huge amount of it is selling you a mechanical solution to a problem that Percy Boomer solved with a change of stance and no equipment at all in 1942. I am not saying there is some secret meeting where they all agree to hide the truth. It is quieter and more ordinary than that. It is just that the simple, free, permanent answer does not make anybody any money, so it slowly stops getting taught. It falls out of the lesson plans. It disappears from the beginner videos. And within a generation or two, the plain old wisdom that a great player in 1905 took for granted becomes this rare, almost secret thing that a weekend golfer like me has to go digging through 80-year-old books to rediscover. That made me angry, honestly, because I added it up. Those 2 years of lessons cost me the better part of $2,000, and not one instructor ever told me the thing that finally worked in 90 seconds. But being angry does not fix your golf game. Understanding does. And the next piece I found is the one that turns all this from a nice old idea into a rock-solid, provable fact. Because for most of the last century, even the people teaching this the old way did not fully understand why it worked. They knew it worked. They just had the reasons slightly wrong. Now stay with me here, because this is the piece that made everything finally make sense. For decades, the accepted wisdom, even among good teachers, was something people now call the old ball flight laws. The old belief said that the direction your club was swinging decided where the ball started, and the club face decided how it curved. So if you wanted the ball to start right, you swung out to the right. Simple, tidy, and as it turns out, mostly wrong. Around the middle of the 2000s, radar tracking technology arrived that could measure a golf ball and club head thousands of times in a single swing. The best-known name in that world is a company called TrackMan, and one of the engineers behind the science, a man named Frederick Tuxen, helped prove out something that overturned that old belief completely. They measured what actually happens at impact, tens of thousands of times, and the numbers told a very different story. So the knowledge was there, sitting in plain sight, and it makes you wonder how much more got buried the same way. Think about your own last round. The 3 shots that leaked away on the wrong side of the green, the tee ball that cost you the fairway, the little curve you could not trust when it mattered. Every one of those started before the club ever moved, in a setup nobody ever taught you right. That is exactly the hole I filled, and it is what the author packed into the complete golf fix system. The first fix walks you through diagnosing exactly where your shots are leaking, the 15-second grip audit that changes ball flight immediately, and the alignment sequence done in the correct order. Finally, the full collection folds in Precision Golf, where you decode what your misses are really telling you, and learn the setup architecture, how 10 inches reshapes your entire ball striking. Every fix, every case, every tool, in one place, with a 6-week structured protocol built for folks who are done guessing. And you can test the whole idea tonight, for nothing. Lay one club on the ground at your target, angle a second one for your feet a few degrees right, keep the face at the target, and make a slow, dry swing in the garage. If the ball flight logic they teach is real, your body will scream that it feels wrong while the geometry says it is right, and you will feel it before you spend a dime. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description, or the pinned comment. Call it the collection because that is what it is, the whole trail in your hands, instead of scattered across 80-year-old books. And here is the honest reason to do it now, not next season. Every round you play with the wrong setup is costing you strokes you will never get back, and that clock is already running. So how did we get to a world where every beginner is told the opposite? Here is what the radar revealed. Where the ball starts is controlled mostly by where the club face is pointing at impact, not by the path of the swing. With a driver, the club face accounts for roughly 3/4 of the ball's starting direction, and some studies put it even higher, up around 80 to 85%. The path only accounts for the small remainder. Then the ball curves away from the path relative to the face. The difference between where the face points and where the club is traveling, that gap, that is what bends the ball through the air. Let that settle for a second, because it changes how you should aim forever. If the face controls where the ball starts, then to start the ball near your target, you point the face near your target. And if the curve comes from the gap between face and path, then to create a draw, you just need the club traveling a little to the right of that face, which you get for free by aiming your body to the right. To create a fade, you need the club traveling a little to the left of the face, which you get by aiming your body to the left. Do you see what just happened? The modern science, the expensive radar that professional tours use, proved that the old cardigan man was exactly right. Aim the body, keep the face on target, swing the same. The science did not replace the old method. It finally explained why the old method had been working all along. Boomer and Hogan and Vardon were feeling their way to a truth that a machine would not be able to confirm for another 60 years. And here is the clue that opens the last door. Once you know the face is king, you stop trying to steer the club with your hands through impact, which is the very thing that wrecks most amateurs. You stop the desperate flip and the last-second save. You just set the face, set the body, and make your ordinary swing. The geometry does the rest, whether you understand it or not. So now I had the why, I had the old books, and I had the modern proof. But I still had one problem, and maybe you are thinking it right now. All of this sounds lovely if you own a launch monitor and a private teaching bay. What about the rest of us? What about the person watching this who cannot afford lessons, does not have fancy gear, and just wants to walk out to a normal range or even a patch of backyard and make it work with the clubs already sitting in the garage? That is exactly the wall I hit next, and cracking it is what made this whole investigation worth it. Because here is the thing I want to say directly to you. If you have been sitting there assuming this is only for people with money and time and a coach on speed dial, it is not. In fact, the old method is better for you than for them, because it needs nothing you do not already have. No launch monitor, no lessons, no new driver with the sliding weights. I am going to give you a way to do this with 2 things you already own and a piece of ground. Take any 2 clubs out of your bag. Lay one on the ground pointing at your target, just outside where the ball would sit. That club is your target line, your reference. Now here is the whole trick for practicing at home or on any empty range. Take the second club and lay it on the ground for your feet, and this is the club you are going to angle. For a draw, angle that foot club so it points a little to the right of the target line, maybe a few degrees, and set your feet, hips, and shoulders parallel to it. Then, and this is the one thing people get backward, set your club face aiming down the first club, at the target, not out to the right where your body is aimed. Feet right, face at the target. Make your normal swing along your foot line. The ball will start out to the right of the target and draw back. If it curves too much, aim your body a hair less to the right. If it does not curve enough, aim a hair more. You are not changing your swing, you are dialing a knob. For a fade, do the mirror image. Angle the foot club a little left of the target line, set your body parallel to that, and keep the face aimed down the target club at the target. Feet left, face at the target. Swing along your feet. The ball starts left and fades back. Now if you do not even have a second club to spare, use anything straight. An old alignment stick if you have one, but honestly a yardstick works, a length of gutter downspout, a broom handle, even a shadow on the grass at the right time of day. I have used a garden cane from the shed. The tool does not matter. What matters is that you have a fixed line for your feet and a fixed line for the target, so your eyes stop lying to you, because your eyes will lie. When you aim your body right for a draw, every instinct screams that you are aiming at the wrong place, and you will want to pull it back. The club on the ground keeps you honest. Here is the part that saves you the most. Do this drill dry, at home, with no ball at all. Just set up, check your two lines, and make slow swings feeling the club travel along your feet, while your eyes stay on where the face points. 10 minutes an evening in the garage or the yard. You are training your body to trust an aim that feels wrong but is right. By the time you get to a real range or a real course, the setup is automatic, and you have spent nothing. No lesson, no gadget, just two sticks and some patience. And one more thing for the person playing the course they already play, with the clubs they already carry. You do not need to be able to shape it 30 yards. A shot that starts a few feet right and drifts a few feet left is a draw, and it is enough to work a ball around a tree, hold a shot into a crosswind, or take one whole side of the fairway out of danger. Small shapes, reliably repeated, will save you more strokes than a giant curve you only pull off once in a while. This is the everyday version, for the everyday player, on the course you have. So the clue clicks. You can do this at home, for free, tonight. But there was still one last measurement I was chasing. Because knowing to aim right for a draw is one thing. Knowing exactly how far so it comes off the same way every single time, that is the piece the old books only hinted at, and it is the piece the radar finally nailed down. And when I found the number, I understood why the great players made it look so effortless. Here is the last piece, the one that pulls the whole trail together, and I found it buried in the way that TrackMan radar data gets used by tour coaches, the same D-plane science that Tucson and the engineers proved out in the 2000s. It comes down to a ratio, and once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. Roughly speaking, the ball curves in the direction of the gap between your face and your path, and the size of that gap controls the size of the curve. But because the face itself sends the ball off at about 3/4 of the way toward where the face points, you have to aim the face itself just slightly, only slightly, in the direction you want the ball to finish, not where you want it to start. So here is the finished recipe, the one that took me 2 years, a stack of old books, and a radar company to assemble. For a stock draw, aim your club face just barely left of your target, almost right at it. Aim your feet and body clearly to the right of that face, a few degrees more open to the right than the face is. Now the gap is set. The face is a touch left of the path, and the ball starts between the two, out to the right, and curls back to finish on target. For the fade, mirror it exactly. Face just barely right of target, body clearly left of that. The gap is reversed, and the ball floats back the other way. The great players were not doing anything magical. They had simply felt, through 10,000 repetitions, the exact size of that gap that produced a controllable 5 or 10 yard curve, and they burned it into their setup so deeply they could do it in the rain in a cardigan without a thought. Hogan set his face and body for a fade and swore he could then swing as hard as he wanted with no fear of the ball going left. Now you know why. He had aimed the geometry. The swing could not betray him because the swing was never the thing controlling the curve in the first place. And this is the whole secret the lesson never gave me. The method existed. Vardon printed it in 1905. Boomer spelled it out in 1942. Hogan lived it in 1957. Then it got quietly buried under a century of you need to rebuild your swing. Because a permanent free answer is bad for business. One old man on a rainy range kept it alive. I traced it back through the books and forward through the radar until it all connected. And now it is yours. And you can go prove it this weekend with 2 sticks and the clubs you already own. I walked away from all this feeling like something had been handed back to me that was quietly taken years ago. Not a new trick, an old truth, one that people who loved this game figured out generations before me, and that I should never have had to pay $2,000 and waste 2 years to stumble onto by accident in the rain. If you are the kind of person who wants the whole trail and not just the headline, who would rather understand why a thing works than be sold a gadget that promises it, then you and I are the same, and you are going to want the next one I am chasing. Now I want to hear from you. And I mean this, because this crowd almost never speaks up, and I am asking you directly. Tell me in the comments, when you set up for that draw, with your feet aimed right and your face at the target, did it feel completely wrong to your eyes the way it did to mine? That gut feeling that you are aiming at the wrong place. Tell me if you felt it, and tell me whether the ball came home anyway. Leave a comment right now, even just one line, because I read them and the answers tell me what to dig into next. And if you want to keep pulling these threads with me, follow along, because this is not a channel so much as a small crew of people quietly reclaiming the practical knowledge that got buried because somebody found it more profitable for us to forget. Next, I am tracing something even stranger, an old way of reading the wind off the grass and the trees that caddies used before anybody carried a rangefinder, a trick that tells you the true wind at the flag when the wind at your feet is lying to you. I have already found the first clue for that one, and it goes back further than you would ever guess. Before you go, let me tell you what comes next. This video showed you the idea. Inside the Practical Wisdom Circle, I walk you through the 3 setup numbers for every shot shape, the full method, laid out step by step. You can ask me your own question, and I answer you myself. No machines. Thousands of old ways folks like you are already there. Just point your phone camera at the code on your screen. Takes a minute, and you can cancel any time with one click. Now that you can shape the ball both ways, let's get your driver working for you. This next video shows you one simple move that finally makes it straight and long. It's starting right here.